Marcus Reed always arrived 20 minutes early, not because anyone asked him to, but because it was how he taught himself. If life won't open the door for you, then come early and learn how to open it from the inside. At 38, Marcus was the last man still working a mop at the headquarters of Ethereum Systems, a billion-dollar AI tech company seated in the heart of San Jose. Gray shirt, worn-out shoes, a scratched name tag. That was all anyone knew about him. But no one ever saw. The technical notebook he kept in his locker was filled with neat handwriting line after line about thread pool management and data garbage collection. No one knew. 15 years ago, Marcus had been a top student in computer science at UCLA until his mother suffered a stroke, and he left school to care for her. From then on, he chose a stable job, one no one looked twice at. Not because he gave up on his passion, but because sometimes survival is also a form of loyalty. Ethereum Systems resembled a cathedral of technology, sleek, sterile, so pristine that not a single speck of dust dared settle. But Marcus knew. There are things no chemical can ever clean. Like the wary glances he got when he stepped into the elevator. Like the tight-lipped smiles after he dared to offer a suggestion. Hey, Marcus, don't mop too close to my desk. The equipment's sensitive to dust, one developer had said, followed by a chuckle, as if it meant nothing. Marcus didn't reply. He didn't need to. He believed dignity doesn't need to be explained, only preserved. Then, one Wednesday night, when the offices on the 6th floor seemed already dark, Marcus heard voices raised, urgent spilling from the main conference room. We've tested 3 times, the bug's still there. If it's not fixed this week, they'll pull all funding. The voices were sharp, panicked. A crisis was unfolding. And the irony was just a few steps away stood a man they'd never once looked in the eye, holding the key to a $100 million system. Marcus paused. Through the frosted glass, he could see a flickering screen lines of code so familiar they haunted him. And in that moment, he knew. If he didn't speak up tonight, no one would ever listen. He stood silently in front of the frosted glass, a surface he had polished countless times, where people discussed million-dollar deals, calling out algorithms like the names of gods. Inside, 2 men stood in front of a massive screen filled edge to edge with flowing code, streaming like early summer rain. One had brown hair, red eyes from sleepless nights, and wore a wrinkled hoodie he was running on fumes. The other was taller white, composed with a chill in his voice that cut clean Connor Blake, the engineering lead, and a man who had passed Marcus in the halls many times. Never once nodding. This line's recursive. It's calling the old handler without garbage cleanup. We're eating ourselves alive, the younger one said, his voice hoarse. We don't have 6 weeks to rebuild the pipeline. If the system still fails by Friday, the investors will pull out. That's it, Connor replied firmly. Marcus felt his heart slow, as his eyes caught one specific line, a legacy handler branch he had seen nearly 7 years ago in the old system. He didn't code daily anymore, but his mind had never left the craft. It was a recursive call to an outdated data handler running within a new system that was not configured to work with it. The result? Memory never cleared. The AI would loop until it crashed, until it broke itself. He tapped gently on the glass. No response. He tapped again. Connor turned, eyebrows raised. We're in a meeting. Marcus raised a hand politely. I'm sorry to interrupt. but I think I know where the problem is. Connor didn't hide his irritation. And you are? Elliot, the younger engineer, looked up. He's Marcus. He works downstairs. I've seen him read the training slides about memory handling. Marcus nodded. I'm not here to interfere, but that loop it's running with the old context without the new garbage collector. It's not destroying excess data, it's duplicating it. Each cycle expands the memory footprint. That's why the AI halts after the 7th loop. Connor folded his arms, eyes sharp as blades. You read that. Through the glass, Marcus gestured lightly toward the screen. Code doesn't hide from someone who's written it. Silence. Connor was uneasy, but Elliot turned the monitor around. Let's try it. Worst case, we lose a few more minutes. Marcus never touched the keyboard. He didn't ask to be included. He pointed to the exact spot. Replace legacy handler with context-safe wrapper. Trigger memory cleanup after each pass, and flush the entire cache. Don't leave any orphaned objects behind. Connor stood motionless for a moment. Then Elliot began to type. 5 seconds. 10. The screen flicked from glaring red to a calm, glowing green. The entire AI processing module now reads, stable. No more errors. Connor stared at Marcus, still in disbelief. How did you? Marcus replied, his voice no louder than the ceiling fan overhead. I didn't know for sure. I'd just seen it before, and I couldn't stay silent, watching others sink. A heavy silence filled the room, not the silence of surprise, but of sudden reckoning. Connor nodded stiffly. Thanks for the input. Marcus gave a faint smile. He hadn't come for thanks. He bowed his head slightly, hand still resting on the mop handle. You can check the logs to be sure. But if the system's stable, I think you already know what you need to do next. He turned and walked out of the conference room. His footsteps echoed across the granite floors he had once scrubbed clean. But tonight, each step sounded like something beginning to shift. The next morning, as Marcus pushed his cleaning cart across the first-floor lobby, a staff administrator waved him down. Marcus, someone wants to see you on the executive floor, the 6th floor, a place he had only entered in the last 4 years when the lights were off and the suit wearers had all gone home. He wiped his hands on his sleeve, straightened his name tag, and stepped into the elevator with the same familiar posture, silent like part of the wall. But this time the destination wasn't a dark hallway. It was a sunlit office, with someone waiting. The executive conference room glowed in natural light. Walnut wood furniture, floor-to-ceiling glass panels, and at the center sat the only woman on the executive board whose name Marcus knew, but whom he had never met in person, Vanessa Cole, CEO and co-founder of Etherion Systems. 44, Asian descent, MIT graduate. Her face was serious but not cold, as if she always left space for the unexpected. Marcus Reed. Her voice was clear, low, and didn't linger. Yes, ma'am, he replied, standing upright with both hands behind his back. Vanessa gestured for him to sit, then placed a thin folder in the middle of the table. I heard you saved our AI pipeline last night. Marcus looked down. I just made a suggestion. Elliot and Connor were the ones who executed it. But if you hadn't spoken up, he stayed quiet. After a pause, he shrugged slightly. Maybe they would have figured it out. Perhaps it would have taken a few more weeks. But contracts don't wait that long. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, studying him like she was reading a complex string of code. "You're not just a janitor, are you?" Marcus let out a small smile, not of pride, but something more bitter. "I studied computer systems at UCLA. Almost finished my junior year when my mom had a stroke. I dropped out to care for her for nearly 2 years. When I came back, the scholarship was gone. Finances dried up. I needed a stable job. This job had benefits, a schedule. I've been here ever since." Vanessa nodded, not with pity, but with understanding. "We want to invite you to join the engineering team officially. Junior systems analyst position. Full salary, full benefits. And," she flipped open the folder, "specialized training begins next week." Marcus looked at the paper before him. The number printed there was nearly 3 times his current salary. It included stock options, extended health care, a training stipend. But he didn't reach for it. He only said, "I didn't think. Someone like me usually gets a second chance. Not at this age. Not with a resume this empty." Vanessa didn't smile. She only tilted her head slightly, calm and steady. "Maybe you're right. Maybe most systems aren't built to welcome someone like you. But," she paused, "some people build entire careers off a single piece of code." Then she stood and extended her hand. "You don't need to decide now, but if you're ready, nod. I'll handle the rest." Marcus shook her hand. Warm, firm. For the first time, a door opened before him, not to be cleaned, but to be stepped through. That afternoon, back in the janitor's break room, Marcus opened his locker and pulled out a worn leather notebook. Inside were network diagrams of Ethereon that he had sketched by hand. Tiny notes in black ink, copied from meetings he'd secretly listened to. Each page. It was proof he had never given up the dream. It was just that no one thought he deserved it. Until now. Monday morning, Marcus Reed entered Ethereum Systems without a mop in his hands. Instead, he wore a white shirt, simple khaki pants, and carried the old leather bag, the only thing left from his UCLA days. No one guided him, but he knew where to go. 5th floor. AI engineering. A place that once felt like a mirage. Now real. As Marcus walked through the glass doors, heads turned. No one said anything. A few blinking stares. A reluctant nod. A stranger entering a world of insiders. His assigned desk was at the far end of the row next to a window. A quiet spot near the printer and the coffee machine. On the desk, 2 monitors. A sheet with his system login, a brand new ID badge for the first time without facility staff beneath his name. Elliot was the first to approach. "You doing okay?" Marcus nodded. "If anything feels unfamiliar, just ask. People can be private at first." Marcus smiled. Private, another word for cold. He spent the entire morning reviewing internal documents, new architecture, new code base, frameworks that had evolved far beyond what he once studied. He read in silence, took notes, and downloaded the sandbox build to run local tests. No one asked if he needed help. No one explained how meetings were organized. That afternoon, during a brainstorming session, Connor glanced around and said, "Oh, this one's just for the core team. New folks can skip it." Marcus nodded. No objections. But in that silence, a different kind of endurance was being forged. He began to learn to listen more, not just words, but to the rhythm in team discussions, to trace logic through others' code, to read Slack channels without chiming in. That night, he kept rewriting test code, stayed up until nearly 2 a.m. Then finally he closed his laptop. On the third day, he suggested a fix to a redundant data processing step. Submitted the update. No response. Just a comment from Connor. Interesting, but don't use 2010 logic in a 2025 pipeline. Marcus said nothing. He deleted the comment, but saved the code in a private folder. A reminder. Even when you're right, it doesn't always mean you're allowed to say it. Wednesday afternoon in the pantry, he overheard two junior engineers talking. "Dude, I heard he used to mop floors here for years, and now he's sitting in brainstorm meetings, PR stunt, or what fair, please. Has anyone seen him publish a single line of code?" Marcus stepped in. They fell silent. He just poured water, nodded slightly, and walked away. No confrontation. Just a presence that unsettled them because they couldn't understand it. But then, light came from where he least expected. Friday night, as Marcus typed a new line of code to optimize AI response time, Elliot passed by. "You're still here." "Not done yet," Marcus replied, not turning around. Elliot looked at the screen, stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said softly, "This part? You found the leak." "We've been debugging that forever." Marcus nodded. "Not sure yet, but if we flush the thread at this logic branch, it could boost performance by nearly 8%. No one's tested it, though." Elliot sat beside him. "Can I take a look?" For the first time all week, Marcus was listened to, not for his background, but for his knowledge. That night, Marcus left the building at 11:47 p.m. As he scanned out the words Junior Systems Analyst glowed faintly on his new badge. He paused at the glass wall, catching his reflection. No longer the man with the mop, but in his eyes still a flicker of caution. Because he knew to walk into a room like this takes more than talent. It takes the strength to endure coldness to its very edge. The second week passed. Marcus didn't arrive late a single day. He didn't miss a single line of documentation. He didn't join a meeting without preparing thoroughly beforehand. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened. Not because his voice was loud, but because the way he spoke made it clear he had lived through things others only read about in internal manuals. Elliot grew closer to him. They collaborated to resolve an asynchronous processing issue. The result, an 11% improvement in response speed. Elliot gave credit to the team. Marcus said nothing. That Wednesday, Marcus submitted a pull request, a proposed change to the data normalization code. Meticulous, sandbox tested, well documented. He had spent 2 nights rewriting it from scratch to make sure no one had a reason to deny it. The next morning, he opened his laptop and saw the notification, "Rejected, not standard protocol." No detailed feedback, no suggested revisions, just a cold red mark. And the reviewer's name is Connor Blake. At noon, HR sent a short email. "Marcus, can you spare 15 minutes for a work culture conversation on Monday? We want to ensure you're having a positive experience." Marcus sat upright, not surprised. He had seen this email sent right before several colleagues were removed from projects. He printed it, placed it on his desk, said nothing. That afternoon, after returning from lunch, he found a small yellow sticky note on his desk. Handwritten. Bold letters. "Know your place." No name, no initials. No one around said a word. Marcus didn't flinch. He stared at the note for a long moment, then gently realigned it. Centered it perfectly on the desk, like a nameplate. Not because he was afraid, but because he wanted the writer to know he'd seen it, and he wasn't going anywhere. That evening, Elliot stopped by his desk. "Hey, I heard your PR got rejected." "Yeah," Marcus replied, still typing. "It shouldn't have been. I reviewed it. It was clean, solid, but..." He paused. Connor doesn't like having someone rewrite flows tied to his name. Marcus didn't look up. He asked, "Is it because I used to mop floors here?" Elliot went quiet. So quiet that the question became a statement. That night, Marcus sat alone in the break lounge after hours, holding a cold cup of coffee, gazing out the glass wall. Sienna, a software QA engineer, approached with a tea bag in hand. She sat down beside him, said nothing at first, just waited. "I know," she finally said, "you don't need defending. But some people only recognize value when it wears the right color of shirt." Marcus turned toward her, lips slightly curved. "I've worn out my soles on floors they've just started walking on. Names change, but attitudes rarely do." She nodded, silently. "You know what's funny?" Marcus continued. "When I held a mop, they thought I wasn't smart enough. Now that I hold a laptop, they think I don't belong. No matter what's in my hands, to them I'm always wrong." Sienna didn't smile, but her eyes offered silent recognition. "Not everyone here is like them," she said softly. Marcus nodded. "I know, but someone's always going to test how much I can wear down before I break." And sure enough, that someone didn't wait long. The next morning, Marcus arrived as usual early, but his desk had been moved. No longer near the window, no longer quiet. Instead, he was placed beside the photocopier, noisy, cluttered with the smell of printer ink hanging all day. No explanation, no email, just a small note. "Old desk under maintenance. Temporary relocation." Bryant, an older development team lead, approached. "They moved your spot." Marcus nodded. "Maybe the photocopier needs me." Bryant frowned. "Want me to say something?" Marcus smiled. "No need. I've worked in worse seating charts than this." And just when everyone assumed Marcus had begun to know his place, he was already preparing another line of code, a line that would once again bring the entire company to silence. Monday. The weekly sprint planning meeting took place in the glass room on the 5th floor. Teams reported in. Progress updates one after another. No one looked at Marcus when he walked in except for Elliot and Sienna, who still greeted him with kind eyes. When it came time for the AI optimization team, Connor stood before the whiteboard presenting response time strategies. He pointed at the simulation graphs and then invited feedback. Marcus raised his hand. Connor's brow twitched, then he gave a reluctant nod. Marcus stood. His voice was low, measured. "If we shift background data sampling to an earlier fork in the pipeline, we can reduce processing time by 12 to 15%, while freeing the subthread in advance to prevent queue congestion." I tested it in the sandbox. Docs are in folder optimization test 03. He hadn't even sat down yet when Connor cut in. "Thanks, Marcus. But this is the new architecture. We don't code like it's 1994 anymore." Laughter mingled with silence, not loud, but enough to make some eyes glance away. Marcus said nothing, just nodded, then sat down. No rebuttal, no sigh. But inside, something quietly broke. That afternoon, Sienna brought him a printout of the test log. I checked. "Your method. It's right. Not just right, better than the current team's implementation. Marcus shrugged. Doesn't matter. If the wrong person proposes it, even the right solution becomes wrong. You're not angry, she asked. Marcus looked out the window. I don't have the luxury of being angry. All I have is time patience. And a crowd of people were waiting for me to fail. But his patience was about to be tested to the edge. Friday, 10:57 a.m. The company was in full swing when alerts suddenly lit up across the internal system. AI engine down. Ethereum's flagship machine learning model used to process medical data from a cancer research partner had stopped responding. Departments scrambled. Connor shouted, "Check the servers, dig through the logs, start from 600 a.m. Marcus glanced at the trace appearing on the main screen. Just once. Then he stood, without a word, without asking. He walked straight to the control panel, sidestepping Connor, and pointed at a specific error line. Here. The code is calling an old version that was deprecated last month. It's looking for a data table that no longer exists. Connor's eyes widened. That's impossible. That schema's been locked. Marcus didn't even turn around. Correct. But someone pushed a backup build last night at 6:17. That version includes the old script, and it got deployed to production instead of staging. The room froze. Bryant rushed over, checked the logs. Silence. Then a nod. He's right. Connor, you pushed the wrong build. You didn't target the correct branch. Connor went pale. His mouth opened, but no words came out. 3 minutes later, Vanessa Cole entered the war room. Status Marcus stepped forward. Bug located. We can roll back. Delete the legacy handler call and purge orphaned queries. Vanessa looked at Bryant. He nodded. Do it, she said. Her voice wasn't raised, but everyone heard it. 10 minutes later, the system was back. All data restored. Nothing lost. Connor sat down silently, shirt sticking to his back. Marcus returned to his desk, said nothing. No one said anything to him. Until Vanessa called out Marcus, "Stay after the meeting." Connor stood up, ready to leave. Vanessa glanced at him. No. Connor out. Now. No one objected. Once the door closed, only the two of them remained. Vanessa took the lead chair at the conference table, looked directly at Marcus. You just saved us. Again. Marcus shook his head. I just saw what no one wanted to admit. She nodded. Once. Connor will be reassigned. This isn't his first mistake, but it will be his last on the AI team. Marcus stayed quiet. No joy. No judgment. You don't have to stay humble anymore, Marcus, Vanessa said. You weren't just right. You were the only one willing to point it out. He responded slowly, I don't need respect. I need fairness. I need space to work, to be wrong, to be right, like everyone else. Vanessa stood, offered her hand, and you'll have that. On the way back to his desk, Marcus passed the noisy photocopier. The note. Know Your Place still sat there, kept from before. This time, he folded it in half. Not because he was afraid, but it held no weight anymore. Thursday. The Ethereum building buzzed more than usual. Banners lined the corridors. The pantry showcased a buffet from a famous Thai restaurant. On internal Slack, a pinned announcement stood out. All employees are invited to the town hall at 11:30. CEO Vanessa Cole will announce a new initiative on tech education and internal diversity. Marcus received the same invite as everyone else. No personal message attached. No one told him he should say anything. That morning, his daughter Patrice called. "I saw it," she said. "There's an article about a scholarship with your name on it." Marcus was caught off guard. "Which site?" "Wired. Fast Company. LinkedIn's full of it. Some people are guessing you're the quiet engineer. But I know it's you. They're finally seeing what I've seen since I was little." Marcus said nothing. Inside, he felt a soft knock. Not pride, but something closer to caution. Because he knew wherever the spotlight reaches, the shadow behind stretches just as long. 11:30, Town Hall. The room was unusually packed. Most were there out of curiosity, some out of obligation, and some to see who was about to be elevated. Vanessa walked in from the side stage. No assistant, no notes. "We talk a lot about innovation," she began, "but rarely about who gets left behind." The room fell utterly still. "This week we are launching the Marcus Reed Scholarship Fund for students of color, underrepresented backgrounds. Or those are underestimated simply because of where they come from. Full tuition, housing support, mentorship programs." A few claps echoed through the room. Others remained silent. Vanessa didn't wait for applause. "We've named the fund after someone who spent 16 years in silence. Not because he had nothing to say, but because no one ever listened the right way. Someone who saved our AI system twice. Someone many of us have passed, without ever remembering his name." Her gaze shifted toward the back row. "Marcus." "Would you please stand?" Marcus rose. No wave, no step forward. Just stood quietly. And the entire room held its breath. Then the clapping began. Slow, scattered, then building. Some stood. Others, including Connor, remained seated. Eyes lowered as if the applause stung. After the meeting, Marcus returned to his desk. Someone had taped a note outside the tech room door. "So now janitors get their scholarships." He didn't tear it down, just folded it neatly, slipped it into his bag, alongside the old note, "Know your place." That afternoon, Bryant stopped by Marcus's desk with a brighter look than usual. "Guess I have to call you a living legend now." Marcus chuckled softly. "Just an old guy writing code no one expected." Bryant leaned in, voice lower. "Some folks on Slack are wondering why the company's favoring you so much. And what did you tell them?" I said, "He's not being favored. He's being proven." That evening, as Marcus walked through the parking lot, something landed lightly against his back. He turned. A young man in a company hoodie stood behind him. No smile, no greeting. Just tossed a printed onboarding packet, the kind usually handed to interns. "Congrats on your early retirement bonus," the guy muttered before walking off. Marcus didn't chase after him. He picked up the packet, placed it in his bag. That night in his small apartment, Marcus sifted through emails and scholarship documents. A new message came in from Elena Torres. The first high school senior was accepted into the program. "Uncle Marcus. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I want to become someone like you. Thank you for helping me believe I deserve a chance." Marcus sat in silence for a long time, then typed back, "Don't become someone like me. Become the version the world never dared to imagine. I'll be watching." The week after the town hall seemed, on the surface, to mark the beginning of a new journey. But for Marcus, it felt more like a test of quiet survival, because what comes after recognition, it is not always an opportunity. Sometimes it's absence. Monday, 9:00 a.m. Marcus arrived at his desk only to find his workstation powered off, access to the internal server revoked, Slack automatically logged out, two-factor authentication reset. He sat still, didn't ask anyone, just sent one message to IT account locked. Please check. 3 hours later, a reply came. Peer request from project management for internal role redistribution. You will be reassigned. No explanation, no name behind the request. That afternoon, during a team meeting, Marcus suggested improving the AI's tiered processing system. The current model is handling too many concurrent requests. If we divide them into 3 response layers, we can reduce latency by nearly 20%. He spoke, then stepped back. No one argued. No one took notes. Connor, technically reassigned but still loitering among teams, smirked, interesting. But maybe we'll dive deeper once we have the full technical context. Elliot looked ready to object, but Marcus lifted a quiet hand. It's okay. Sometimes silence is how you remember. Wednesday. An email from HR landed in Marcus's inbox. You are invited to a cultural fit assessment part of our internal inclusion initiative. Marcus read it carefully. In tech, cultural fit assessment rarely means they want to understand you. It often means they're looking for a reason to remove you. The meeting took place in a small white-walled room. The coordinator sat across from him, reading questions from a printed template. Do you feel your role is well integrated with the team? Have you ever felt left out in technical discussions? How would you rate your collaboration with colleagues? Marcus answered each question slowly. No defensiveness, no complaints. Just one question made him pause longer than usual. Do you feel the current environment supports your professional growth? He looked up, met the interviewer's eyes. Yes. If that growth happens to come in the right skin color and age group people are used to seeing. The coordinator didn't write anything down, just said, "Thank you," and closed the folder. Friday, 10:00 a.m. Marcus was moved again, no longer seated in the main workspace, now placed near the supply room next to where the tech staff came in for maintenance. No warning, no explanation, just one automated Slack message due to workspace reorganization. Marcus carried his monitor over, didn't complain, didn't ask. He knew when a chair was slowly being pulled out from under him, but he also knew how to stand without one. Later that same day, during a rapid planning meeting, Elliot tried to include Marcus in the new feature test group. The manager skimmed the roster, then said coldly, "He won't be part of the core team next week. For now, he'll assist with documentation only." Marcus didn't lift his head. He heard it. He understood it. When someone fears the light you carry, they begin dimming the room around you. At day's end, with everyone gone, Marcus sat at his desk and looked at the temporary name tag. Support Liaison. Documentation. He peeled it off, tucked it into his bag, opened his laptop, and began writing a small piece of code, a linear bug analysis tool. Something no one asked him for, but everyone would eventually need. Behind him, a figure stopped. It was Sienna. "You're still here, just wrapping up." She looked around. No one else remained. "This morning," she said quietly. "What they did, it was wrong." Marcus didn't respond. She sighed softly. "I don't know how to help. But I do know if I were the one being treated that way, you wouldn't sit still." Marcus gave a faint smile. "Not everyone can stand beside you when you're no longer the one shining." She replied, "But when they blur your name, I still remember who you are." Friday. The morning began like any other. Quick meetings, laughter from the main development team, a team where Marcus's name no longer appeared. He sat at the auxiliary desk near the printer. No one stopped to greet him. No one mentioned his name on Slack. To most of the company, Marcus Reed had stepped back. But at 10:56 a.m., red error messages began flashing wildly across the monitoring screens. AI core crashed. Data pipeline interrupted. Model thread timeout. Ethereum's most advanced AI system. The model is currently under testing at a major hospital for early cancer diagnostics. Suddenly, it ceased all operations. In the control room, Elliot called out, "Check the servers." Sienna began scanning the thread logs. Connor, though officially reassigned, hovered back in standing by the management console. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes later. Status, she asked, eyes sweeping the room. No one had a definitive answer. In the corner of the room, Marcus remained quiet. He opened his laptop, accessed the thread logs from the same branching model he'd once proposed and had been denied. Only 8 lines in, he saw it. A call to an old Module 1 that had been skipped during the deployment of the latest version. It had been reinserted in a backup script and accidentally pushed into the production build. Marcus stood. No permission asked, no knocking. He walked straight to the console. Connor moved to block him, but Vanessa raised her hand. "Let him speak." Marcus pointed to the log. "The old module is being called from an automated memory cleanup script. It's pointing to a data table that was deleted in version 4.7. Elliot checked. Sienna reran the command. Both went still. "He's right," Elliot said. "The bug's in the garbage handler script." Connor protested. "That's impossible. That script was reviewed twice." Marcus replied softly. "Yes, but not in the live environment. The person who pushed the script didn't know the staging build had already updated the data structure. A simple statement. No accusation, no blame, just truth." Vanessa asked, "Can we fix it?" Marcus nodded. "If we roll back the call, remove access to the deleted table, and restart the model, it'll take 7 minutes." "Do it," she said. 7 minutes later, the system came back online. All data recovered. The model functioned normally again. The control room went dead silent. Vanessa didn't say a word. She just looked at Marcus for a long time, then turned and left. No applause, no handshake. But everyone who had stood in that room that day knew exactly what had just happened. That afternoon, Marcus left early. He didn't stay for Thanksgiving. Didn't wait for a second glance. He drove his old Toyota back to his apartment complex in Oakland, opened the door, set down his bag, poured a cup of tea, and opened his laptop. In his inbox was one unread email: Mr. Marcus Reed, we are honored to invite you to speak at the upcoming Data for Equity Symposium hosted by Stanford University. He looked at the sender's name. A former professor, one who had once told him that machine learning isn't a viable path for someone without a degree. Marcus didn't reply. He bookmarked the email, labeled it for later. The next morning at the office, a note was taped to the tech room door. We propose renaming the AI server room to Marcus's room, because clearly it lives and dies on his breath. Below it was Elliot's signature, and under that, Sienna's scrawled addition, and that breath never skips a beat. Marcus took the note down, saying nothing. He didn't need to hang it up, because for the first time in years, he didn't need to prove he belonged. He just had to be himself. The following week, the name Marcus Reed gained widespread recognition across the tech industry. Not because of the press, not because of viral videos, but because an AI system had been brought back to life by a man removed from the core team. On programming forums, questions popped up. Who is Marcus Reed? LinkedIn overflowed with connection requests. A machine learning startup invited him to advise their tech team. A major corporation offered him a role as chief data architect. An Ivy League university proposed a part-time faculty position with an unbelievable salary. Marcus read them all, then closed the laptop. He didn't respond. Friday afternoon. Vanessa Cole walked personally to Marcus's desk, still the side table by the printer. Though after what had happened, everyone knew it was the most powerful desk in the building. She brought no assistant, no documents, only one item, a new company ID. Marcus Reed, Senior Systems Architect, Department AI Strategy. No speech, no announcement, just decisive action. You haven't replied to Stanford yet, she said. Still not sure I'm the right fit, he answered, smiling faintly. She nodded. But you're someone who deserves to be seen and heard. Whether they understand you, that's their problem. Marcus held the badge, silent, and in that moment, he wasn't lit by external light. He was shining from within. The following week, the Marcus Reed Scholarship Program officially opened applications. Over 900 came in, from Fresno, Baton Rouge, Flint, and the South Bronx. Most from schools with no AP computer science. Many are written on public Wi-Fi. Some handwritten with photos attached because they didn't own printers. And then 5 students were selected. Among them, Elena Torres, the girl who had written Marcus weeks before. The scholarship ceremony was held at Etherion's auditorium. No elaborate backdrop, just a simple banner. Not everyone gets a first shot, but no one should be denied a second. Elena walked on stage, white shirt, braided hair, hands trembling, eyes fierce. Marcus stood backstage, saying nothing. He didn't need to step forward, because this time, he wasn't the one leading. He was the one who had opened the door. That night, after everything had wrapped up, Marcus stopped by the old security office, knocked gently. Maurice, the night guard, looked up. Haven't seen you in a while. Marcus smiled. I'm on the day shift now. Rumor has it, you saved the whole system. Saved the company. Marcus shook his head. Just fixed something everyone saw, but no one wanted to fix. Maurice poured 2 cups of cold coffee. A toast to you still being you, Marcus. Marcus took the cup, glanced at the old camera board behind the desk. Back then, he said, I thought I'd be cleaning this place till I was old. Who says old can't be legendary? They both laughed, because they both knew. Some roads have no tiles, no name. But once someone dares to walk them, the footsteps that follow will never lead you astray again. The next morning at his new desk, Marcus received an email from Elena. Last night I got home and my mom cried for hours, not out of fear, but because for the first time she believed her daughter could become an engineer. Marcus replied, Don't let them define your limits by the fears they still carry. Excellence doesn't need permission to exist. Before shutting down his computer, he quietly opened the drawer, pulled out the old note, the one that once read, Know your place. He tore it. Not out of anger, but because it was no longer true. Inside the drawer, he placed a new note. I know who I am, and I know the path I took didn't start at the front door. Because sometimes, you don't need to walk into the room to be recognized. You need to rebuild the room and open the door from the back.